We done with the Bible! If someone can explain this to me. Because how are you Christians using the Bible to prove the Bible? Put down the book and start using your head more, please.
So, can you prove the Bible using the Bible? No, it's a logical fallacy. It's circular logic or self-referencing logic, and because our logic is first of all limited, you can't use this. It's really wrong. You break the principles of logic. So no, you can't use it.
What is it, the braids? There's absolutely nothing wrong with using the Bible to understand the historical life of Jesus.
And this is not the claim what an atheist or agnostic or even a Christian would use. That's not that you can't use the Bible to use the for historical purposes, like you use Josephus or non or coins or the graffitis or something like that. You can use any source you can, but you just have to evaluate how much you should trust it, how authentic it is, how physical it is, what's the purpose why it was written, and so on.
Jesus and the history of the nation of Israel. Those atheists and agnostics who think otherwise are woefully misinformed. But let's get into it. Hello, everyone. I am a Reconstructionist, reconstructing the Christian faith while preventing the spread of biblical misinformation and dogma. Reason over consensus. All right, let's talk about it, because I believe this is buzz phrase number like 35 for the deconstruction movement. And along your deconstruction journey, you probably ran into it a lot.
How can you use the Bible to prove the Bible?
As always, we're going to take a look at the data. Time to take notes. A couple things to note here. The Bible is a collection of books. It's a collection of historical documents. But let's
So this is also a plain lie or falsehood. The Bible is not a collection of historical documents. Most of the documents are not historical. They are theological books. That's the purpose of the Bible, to uh, be the result of Holy Ghost, to teach you, to do things like that. So starting from the first chapter of the Bible and ending with Revelation, there is almost nothing history in it. There are historical events referenced there, but they are reconstructed for your theological growing. And this is not my speculation. You can look about analysis, how the I would recommend there is a series from Yale, Introduction in the Old Testament, and to see how the Old Testament writers who wrote the Torah, it was not only Moses, spoiler alert, they would comment on the mythology that it was already there. And excluding if you consider that the Gilgamesh was true, and just to say probably a king Gilgamesh was existing, but all the mythology around him, it was true. There is nothing you claim. And you can't end it with revelation. And sometimes some books are written in kind of historical writing, but even there, sometimes it's not as historical as it claims. Like things which are definitely embellished, modified, polemicized, like the Tower of Babel. There is no Tower of Babel. There was never Tower of Babel. It's a comment on Babylonian captivity when the Jews were captured and so on. There was no flood. There was no, I don't know, maybe some people will say David existed, but a lot of stories around it, you kind of can't confirm it. Or King Solomon having a relation with Queen of Sheba, if I remember right. And they couldn't be. They are around 150 years apart. There are mistakes like that, if you say that, but it was important for the authors to match the stories. And the mistakes, you'll see them over and over, from Exodus to Revelation. But the point is that the historical text in antiquity was trying to justify using some historical base, sometimes there is even not a historical base, to prove a theological point. That is the point of the Bible. Plus, most of the Bible is not written in a historical text. A lot of it is prophecies, a lot of it is poems, even the Job book, if you take it as a history, most of it is God, why he can't be judged, or Psalms, or something like that, or Proverbs, or the poem of love and saying how big are the breasts of someone. I'm not sure that is historical take. If you think it's a story, good for you, enjoy it. But the size of the chest is not the central pinnacle of history, at least from a historical analysis.
focus mainly on the Gospels. The Bible is a collection of historical documents. So before the Gospels were canonized and congregated into one book, you had these sources going around from place to place. Same with the letters from Paul. And when judging their historical reliability, I would encourage the Reconstructionists to consider the criteria of authenticity. As Dr. Gary Habermas and many other scholars have noted, this criteria is used to determine whether or not an event actually happened. I've gone over it in...
So this is a mistake of him. The criteria of authenticity is not about if an event actually occurred. And let's go also with the Gospels as an example. So I use this one. This is from a apologetics book site. So just to be very clear, but that is the same for non-apologetics. It is that an event, if it comes from Jesus or a saying, it is that when this criteria happens, it boosts the credibility of the event in the question. And that's all. So can you say that, for example, Jesus was from Nazareth? It matches, I think, reasonably all the criteria we could throw on it. Like early Christians tried to be him born in Bethlehem, at least one of them, and the other one copying from him. Is it interesting that even on his cross, he is written Jesus from Nazareth, King of the Jews? And this is multiple attested. It doesn't match the criteria of them being happy that he's from Nazareth. They will want him really from Bethlehem. That is the same. Can anything good go from Bethlehem? Come from Bethlehem. So there is some discomfort for people from Bethlehem. He was crucified. Yes, it looks again multiple attested. You can get it even extra canonical sources and so on. It matches very easily this criteria. But on the same time, in the same gospel or letters of Paul or something like that, you can find things which are dissimilar. I'll take both cases from the Gospel of John because it's easier to accept even by biblical Christian scholars that it is not a historical written book. Jesus says at the end of the cross, described in a historical way, it is over. Are his last words on the cross. Is it multiple attested? No. We have an attestation of Luke that he says something else as his last words. Is it dissimilar with the John Gospel? No. It's the point of triumph. Is it embarrassing? No. This is the best he wanted, the Jesus, to fulfill everything. And on the cross, everything was fulfilled. So all these parts are all these criteria. If you think this proves that Jesus says that, great for you. But still, it does lower much more. Jesus was hit by the finger. He was fingered by Thomas, putting in the heart the finger, because before he was the spear hitting. Is it matching multiple attestation? No, only John has it. Is it dissimilar from the Judaism and early Christians after him? No, in fact, he fights of the Docetic view, the other writings of Johann in school, or whatever you think, if thinking is the same. John would fight against Docetism. So the hand doesn't go through, so to be dissimilar with what Johann writer would write, or John, if you want to name him like that. Is it embarrassing? Oh, of course not. It's the best thing that even Thomas, the unbeliever, becomes a believer. So all these parts, again, are over glorious relations, which shows, at least on the same criteria, because criteria is for individual claims and events, that the gospel are a wish-wash. And it's the same if you compare Luke with Paul's letters, that there are a lot of disagreements between them, especially on the history of Paul's life. So can you trust them? I think not, definitely not too much. There are parts which kind of are testable, but not too many.
Several videos, and I'll probably just share some screenshots of what the criteria entail. Those saying otherwise simply don't understand how antiquitous authentication works. You cannot hold these two statements to be true. One, I believe Jesus actually existed. And two, but you can't trust the gospel.
You can believe that Jesus existed because this is multiple attested. As I said, this is one claim of the Gospels. And it doesn't mean if one claim is true, all the others are true. And I will give you a similar part, at least I think a Christian would believe. Many Christians quote Josephus, that he proved the crucifixion and that he was seen as a Messiah, at least by some. So if you take that this claim is true, it's multiple attested, but the gospel and so on, you will not take all the Josephus writings as true. Not only that, sometimes they really quite contradict some texts that, for example, Luke seems to say. And this is interesting because Luke seems to copy Josephus, but modifies it. So you can say it's a multiple attestation or whatever, but some events are mismatching. And just considering one event true in Josephus, I'm not saying Josephus gets it wrong or Luke gets it wrong, doesn't prove all the Gospels are true or all Josephus is true. That's a misunderstanding, quite basic one.
To give you accurate information on him, bruh. The reason you and the vast majority of historians acknowledge the existence of Jesus is because of the reliability of the Gospels and the epistles, the early church creeds.
And this is the last comment I want to make about this topic, is that there are three claims. Reliability of the Gospels, as I said to you, it's a very gray with white spots and very black spots. The Paul's epistles in general, some of the Paul's letters are not written by Paul, so it's even worse if you go as a more conservative or fundamentalist Christian. But the early church creeds, I think he may mean one or two, they don't pass too well the criteria of authenticity. Maybe the Eucharist, the bread and wine part, it is multiply attested. But for example, 1 Corinthians 15, that part with the resurrection is not multiply attested. It's only once attested of a person saying there are many people. And even Paul could be quoting someone else. It is not attested from who he quotes on. So even this criteria which he uses, it is not as good as he claims it is.
Gospels speak of real people, real times, real places. So stay open-minded. The Reconstruction journey should be fun. Now, class, for your recommended reading and homework, we're going to go with Trusting the New Testament by James.
And they recommend a book. I would say this book is crap. There is a scholar saying that this guy is fully unqualified. So I will quote you a book of scholars at least. And this is one book which you may never heard of. Is the Five Gospels, what did Jesus say? And what it looks from passages, and it looks how much a person would likely said it. And red, it means it's fully from Jesus. Pink, it means maybe it is said by Jesus, maybe it's a bit modified, and by whom. And you can see it's Matthew, Thomas, and things like that. And depending on the passage, you'll see a lot of blacks, like black meaning no one thinks that Jesus wrote it. Pink, it's likely said by Jesus or one or two modified. And there are a lot of grays and pinks and very few reds, in fact. I'm not saying there is nothing red here, but like the Samaritan, many people think it's red. But the other parts, there are quite many blacks. So that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this format, and stay wise, use your rationality, and join our channel if you like. Thank you, and bye-bye.